Hi, my name is Karen, and in this video, I will be showing you how to make an infographic with Piktochart in less than 30 minutes. Knowing that about 90% of information that is transmitted to the brain is visual, it is clear that there is a need for infographics, so let's dive right in. First things first, infographics is about communication and not design. People often tend to overdo design in infographics by adding tons of different fonts, color, and trying to cram in all the latest design trends and then get frustrated when it doesn't communicate. I mean, design is important, but not in the way you may think it is. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's start creating an infographic. I will be taking you through 7 steps to creating your infographic. Step 1 is to define your audience. When you try to please everyone, you please no one. In the same way, when you try to create an infographic that is interesting to everyone, it ends up being interesting to no one. Part of creating a good infographic is deciding who it is for, and equally as important, who it is not for. This will help you in determining how much data to put in, what lingo and jargon you can get away with, what the overall style of the infographic will be, and how much detail you need to explain everything in your infographic. You need to ask yourself the following questions. Is your target audience internal or external? This will determine how much information you need to put into your infographic. When you create an infographic for internal audiences, you can skip over the basic information. You don't need to explain the basics to a colleague who's been working on the same thing for months. However, if you're creating the infographic for an external audience, you need to set the scene before you explain the details. The next is, what is the target audience's position? The higher you go in an organization, the more strategic your infographic needs to be. When your audience consists of experts, you can safely assume they understand the lingo associated with your field. You can skip over the basic information and go more in depth. For this video, we shall be creating for an external audience who have a working knowledge for what an infographic is and what it is used for, and have the need to communicate to customers or the general public. The second step is to define your goals. A visual can look a little unfocused if you do not have a clear goal. An infographic can have several goals. For example, it can visualize a process. In 2011, Everlane created an infographic explaining why clothes cost more than they should. They took you through the process of what it takes to create a basic t-shirt and how much each step costs. In the second half of the infographic, they show you how companies mark up their prices and how it's sold to you at a much higher price than it needs to be. Report on data. Spreadsheets are boring. An infographic can take the same data and turn it into a meaningful story. The next is to onboard an employee. Starting a new position can be stressful and confusing. If someone is new at your organization and you want to make for them a cheat sheet on how the company works, you can create an infographic for them to use as reference. And much more, your goal will determine how you lay out your information on your infographic. For our infographic, our goal is to educate you on how best to create an infographic. We're doing that by creating a summary of this video that you can get back to or share with your friends and others who may need it. The third step is to gather information. You now need to make sure that the information you gather supports your goal. This is a step where a lot of people get stuck. If the core of your infographic is meaningful information, where do you get the information from? The first and most convenient is your organization. Analytics, sales data, SOPs, all can give plenty of data to turn into an infographic. However, make sure you have permission to use the data. Sometimes you may not have access to, or you don't want to use your own company's data. In that case, a great place to find very interesting data is Kaggle. You can find data ranging from top games on Google Play to basketball datasets or even global warming. One thing to note of when gathering data is less is more. You may be tempted to wow your viewers with a truckload of content, but this often has the opposite effect. Give enough data points to get an overview of a topic, but also take one data point and explain it in depth. For our infographics, since we're making a graphic that summarizes this video, we will be using the outline as our data. Step 4 is to choose your type of infographic. The type of infographic you choose determines the overall layout of your data. So there are a couple of infographic types. These are process infographics, comparison infographics, timeline infographics, informational infographics, and list infographics. Each has its own way of displaying information. Comparison infographics will use a 2-column layout, while a list infographic will use 1 column. Start thinking of how you want to lay out your information, so when it's time to pick a template, you know exactly what to look for. For our infographic, since we're talking about a process, it's a process infographic. We know we'll have to look for a template that either shows a process or progress. A 2-column layout will not work for us. It is now time to bring structure from the information we got in step 3. We shall do this now, as it gets harder to incorporate this when we get designing. I suggest creating on Word or Google Docs so that you can have an overview and switch around things without much of a hassle. Trying to do that after you've designed the graphic can be a pain. Going through the structure you created and explaining it as you go along will help you see the gaps in your argument. Since we're working with the outline from this video, the structure won't look too different from this video. Here's what we're going to use. Step 6. It is now time to pick and customize a template that fits your message. Unless you're a designer, there's no need to design your infographic from scratch. If you haven't spent time developing an eye for design, you may not know what looks good and what doesn't. A good design won't make your infographic successful. But if you have a bad design that detracts from your message, you're in trouble. An infographic with a solid structure with an okay design will do better than a greatly designed infographic that is all over the place. That's why I suggest picking a template and thereafter adjusting it to your needs. Our infographic templates are created by professional designers and are made to be customized. Explore through hundreds of ready-to-use infographic templates and pick one that matches the structure you're aiming at. Now all you need to do is customize it to your needs. Templates are the starting point of your graphic. They shouldn't be used as the final picture. Adjust the colors, font, text, and images to make the template your own. It's easy to do with our infographic maker. Let's talk color. Color impacts the tone of your infographic. Using bright and playful colors gives your infographic a bright and playful look. Keep in mind the goal and message you want to communicate. You don't want to use those bright and playful colors when you're addressing a serious problem. If your company or brand has a specific color scheme, you can manually pick the colors you want. Now let's work on adjusting fonts and text. Just like colors, fonts have a big impact on how your message is received. Pick the wrong one and you could give your message a whole new meaning. However, do know that finding a good font combination is an art in and of itself. It's now time for images and icons. An infographic with only text is boring. You should use images and icons to spice things up a little. When working with colors and fonts, you can use tools to compensate for your lack of experience. With images and icons, however, you're messing with the white space and composition of the design. You can use the helper lines in Piktochart to snap elements into place and keep things aligned. But ultimately, you have to decide whether something looks good or not. This requires some knowledge of basic design principles. When it comes to images and icons, this all depends on your message and what emotional message you want to communicate. Think of what would symbolize your message. A picture of a beach can symbolize vacation, a picture of a conference can symbolize collaboration, and so on. I think you get the gist of it now. But please avoid using overused stock images. You know, the ones, the customer support employees smiling at the camera, the two people shaking hands, the politically correct group that seem weirdly happy in a meeting. And we're at the final step. Once your infographic is complete, you can either download it as a PDF or PNG and send it via email or share it on social media. If you added links to your infographic that pointed to other resources, it doesn't make sense to download it as an image. You can embed your infographic on your website.
To do this, go to Share, tick the box to make your infographic public, and click View Embedded Code. This allows you to paste the piece of code on your website. If you're using WordPress and want to embed it onto your blog post, you'll have to put the piece of code in a HTML block. And here's the infographic we created. If you want to give it a go yourself, go ahead and create a free Piktochart account and have some fun with some of the free infographic templates. Thank you so much for watching this video. We will see you next time.